Yes. Can you see
Yes.
that? Can
Yeah.
everybody see that? Okay, yeah. So I didn't really know what to call it, but supporting children with additional needs seemed okay. It does what it says on the tin. So yeah. Hang on a minute. I'll move through my not allowing me to move through my slide. Hang on. Presentation. Yeah, I'm very technically challenged as well. How wasn't it letting me move through? Anyone got any ideas? The presentation. Oh, because it scrolls. That's why.
Right.
Okay. So a little bit about me. Yoni's already told you something about me. She gave you like the really like when you were saying it, Yoni, I was just like, oh my goodness.
Very impressive.
Selling my qualifications. So yes, I qualified as a teacher back in 2006 or 7 now, and almost went straight into special educational needs. Well, I did go straight into special educational needs and became a SENCO in 2009, special needs coordinator in the mainstream secondary school in 2009, and that's really what I've done ever since. So for 15 years, I've been a SENCO in the mainstream secondary school. And I've just recently left the secondary school, like the school, to work for the local authority. So now I am a caseworker in the local authority, and my main role is to initiate the plans, the education healthcare plan process for children of all ages. But then I also support learners who are in the post-16 age range in transitioning from school to college or to a post-16 provider or into work, who have an education healthcare plan or special needs. So that's what I do all of the time now. So I work partly in schools and partly at home, but yeah, 15 years of the bell going every hour. I've done that. so I get some peace and quiet now. So yeah, a little bit more about me. I mean, you know, my day job is my day job, but I am a wife to Tim, been married for 20 years now. We met at university, and I'm a mum to just one, and enough. And she's nearly 18, so we're doing the whole university thing at the moment and applying and looking for places. So she's keeping me busy. Another thing you need to know about me is that I was that child at school with what was then a statement of special educational needs. Some of you will know that the terminology has changed in the last sort of 10 years in terms of children with special needs. But when I was 15, I was diagnosed with a visual impairment called Stargardt's disease. Some of you may or may not have heard of it. It basically means that my eyesight began to deteriorate at about 10 years old, and yeah, it gradually deteriorated. It's stable now, but it meant that I was not allowed to drive. I couldn't read small print. I needed a lot of help in school to basically get my work done. And for some of you who have teenagers, you might see this already. There was a real battle between me and the teachers and the support, because I just wanted to be like everyone else. So some of the behaviors that you might be seeing, please don't worry. It's normal. You know, it's a really difficult thing to be in school and be different from everyone else. So yeah, so I'm visually impaired as well. So if I lose things on the screen, you know why. You'll be able to help me. So yeah, that's pretty much what you need to know about me. And then also, I've recently started coaching other women who are living with disabilities. I've just got a real heart for helping women and girls, reach their full potential, even though they have a disability. I know how difficult it's been for me in the last sort of 25, 30 years to achieve what I have and to get to where I have with a disability, with all of those barriers. So that's what I do also, is coaching women with those needs. But if you kind of Google me, you'll find out all of that stuff. So yeah, Yoni's asked me to speak to you today about supporting your children with additional needs. Now, all of you have either adopted children or foster children, and it's just so amazing what you do. But you will know that with that comes the emotional kind of, you know, difficulties that can arise from children being moved from one family to another. And you know, where children will present with additional needs, a lot of the time foster children or adopted children can present with needs at different points, and it's just really important that we're aware of them. And it's a lot of the time as well, children in this category also, it's sometimes not that obvious. So it's really important that you as the adoptive parents, as the foster parents, are very aware of how they're presenting and the, you know, the challenges that they might be facing, so that you can then bring that to the attention of others who may not see those behaviors. So I mean, how to support your child as they present with challenges, that's like a $64 million question, isn't it? I always tell parents that you know your child best. You know the things that work for your child. You know the strategies that work for your children, and that's the way that you support them. You know, if you recognize or you see that there are challenges or difficulties that there are starting to emerge, I've put on there, try not to worry, don't panic, because that's when, you know, you as a parent it's very easy to kind of lose the perspective around what is actually going on. And you'll see that as you go through the process of assessment and meeting lots and lots of different professionals, sometimes there's lots of them, you need to be very clear about what is going on. So, you know, you will have your support systems that you should use, and those are the spaces in which, yes, I would encourage you to kind of, you know, air your emotions, but with your child, just try your best to kind of look at what is going on and note that down. I've said about making those notes because when you come to explain, there'll be a point where you feel like you're saying the same thing over and over again. It could feel like that. So make sure that you're writing things down so you don't forget, you know, important points that will feed into things like assessments and you know, and the process in general. Asking your child if they're able to respond, if they're at that age, asking them, you know, if they can explain to you what the difficulties are or what the challenges are that they're having is a really important thing. There's a whole, you know, section around, and you'll know this, around the child's voice and getting the child's voice and getting them to try and understand what is going on. So asking them and trying to get them to explain to you how they're feeling, why they think that you know, they're having these difficulties, how the difficulties make them feel is a really important step as well. Is that okay? Are we okay for questions? Moving on. So engaging the SENCO and the school. So the SENCO, for those of you who don't know, just stands for Special Educational Needs Coordinator. And every school has to have one. Every school has one. The only two roles that have to be filled in school is the head teacher and the SENCO. Like, there's more people, but those two are the two that have to be there. So if your child is in primary, like nursery, primary level, the SENCO may well be the deputy head as well. Might be another, you know, another classroom teacher, might even be the head teacher, depending on how big the school is. In a primary school, the SENCO can assume, a couple of different roles. In a mainstream secondary school, the SENCO is usually the SENCO. They may well have teaching responsibilities as well, but they're not generally kind of, there might be an assistant head, but on the senior leadership team, but they're generally kind of, there is a SENCO in school, and then they have a team of teaching assistants who are supporting them. So from when you've realized that there may be an issue, or you think, okay, there might be something that my child's struggling with, it's possible that the school hasn't noticed that. We have lots of children will go to school and they will cope and they will mask and they will just go through the day, get through the day, and then it's at home where the behavior is seen, where the kind of either the meltdowns or the kind of going into themselves is seen. So it might be that the school hasn't noticed the behavior that you're seeing or the difficulties that you're seeing, and that's for a number of reasons. But if they haven't, and they haven't brought it to your attention, the first thing that you should do is request a meeting with the SENCO or your child's class teacher to make your concerns known. So like those notes I was telling you that you've been making from the start, this is when you can start to bring them in and say, well, this is what's happening at home. What are you seeing at school? It's important that even if the school are saying, well, we don't see those behaviors and we don't kind of have any issues, that you don't just think, oh, well, it must just be at home as well, because whatever is happening will eventually impact all areas of that child's development, of your child's development. So it's really important that you make it very clear that there are these issues, and you want school to be involved in supporting your child to kind of make the progress that they need to. What do I put in here? So at the end of your discussion, I would try and make sure that you agree a plan to monitor both what's going on at home and school. And that can be just over like a 2-week period, 4-week period, however long you think. And then to have another meeting to say, well, how are things either improving, or have you seen any changes, or are things even deteriorating? So it's important that once you tell the school that you say, okay, can we have another meeting in maybe up to a month, up to 6 weeks time, to see whether there've been any changes. Okay, are there any questions before I get on to the UK SEND system? Oh, okay. How the UK SEND system works. I had to laugh when I read this title, because I was like, how it works, how it doesn't work, sometimes works, it might work, depends where you live, it's like,
does it work?
Does it work? I'm still asking myself that question, does it work? But I'm committed to try and make it work in my little area. So how the system works. Now, there's a big document called the Scn Code of Practice, which schools should follow, and it just outlines all of everything to do with it. It's a big government document. But basically, and I've really tried to kind of give you an overview without bombarding you with too much. There are kind of four stages that schools will go through in the process of thinking about special educational needs. So the quality first teaching level is the level where everybody, you know, what is offered in school is offered to everyone in the classroom. Think about a classroom, maybe not think about a whole school, think about a classroom. So a classroom teacher will have their class in front of them, and they will be expected to do a series of things to help all of those children make progress. And that's those things like providing differentiated, you know, resources, making sure that they chunk learning, that kind of thing, providing routines to support behavior. Those kinds of things are considered, and lots more are considered as the quality first teaching level. So that's for all. If you think about that QFT, if you ever see QFT level, that's what that means. You then have the SEND support level. Now, when a child gets to this level, they are receiving support that is additional to and different from what is being offered at the quality first teaching level. So SEND support, I think there was someone who said the child is it being assessed for autism or on the autism assessment? So there are quite a lot of children who are either being assessed on, or, you know, on the assessment pathway, or have been assessed, who are on the SEN support level, SEND support level, and they are receiving maybe extra intervention sessions. So if, as an example, for autism, they may be receiving a small group support with social skills. So they may come out for different sessions to work on social skills, social communication, the areas that you know that children with autism struggle with. There are so many different needs. I can't go through them all now, but SEND support is that additional to and different from. So those children need just a little bit more support than they would at quality first teaching. And with that support, a lot of children remain on that level and do absolutely fine with that in school. So they will have a written plan at that point as well, a written support plan with outcomes and provision on there. They should have. Then you have the SEND support plus top-up funding. Now, it's exactly what I just said, where SEN support additional to and different from, but there is more funding needed by the school in order to deliver the extra. So I'm just trying to think of an example that I have used. So that there are children who have who might be visually impaired children, and they need additional equipment to be able to access the work. So it may be that they need a laptop or an iPad or something like that the school might not be able to give with the resources that they have. It may be that they need an actual person to support them in school, and that's when additional funding can be offered, can be applied for, to support with break times, moving from class to class, that kind of thing, note taking. The options are endless. That's why I said if you've got specific questions, you can ask them. But then there's the additional funding. For schools in the UK, for the schools get £6,000 as their base. So they have to show that they are spending more than that 6,000 to get the additional funding for any particular child, and each child is applied for individually. So once they've costed everything and shown that actually it costs, you know, £10,000 for Charlie to be able to access school, then the additional funding is given to schools. There is also the opportunity for parents to apply for a personal budget as well, which I'll not go into today, but it's just so you know that those options are there. The personal budgets they can be used. Parents can then employ their own TAs, their own occupational therapists. You know, you obviously have to give account of what you're spending the money on, but you can request the money to, and then you use it in the way that you see fit for your child. And that's agreed with the local authority. And then we have the education, health and care plans, which are kind of seen as the holy grail of special needs. I feel with my work, in my work, it feels like at the moment that parents, that's what they're going for. Everybody wants an education, health and care plan. It's very different from when I started 15 years ago. I couldn't convince parents to get a special needs plan for their child. Couldn't convince them. And now it seems that is the thing. The education, health and care plan is and was meant for those children with the most complex needs. So you see that the process in which we've gone through from quality first teaching right the way through to education, health and care plan. So the children who get those need support that is above and beyond everything that we've spoken about. Education, health and care, with an education, health and care plan, children can either stay in the mainstream school or they can move to a specialist provision. You have to have an education, health and care plan, EHCP. You have to have an EHCP to be in a specialist provision. That's the only kind of caveat. There aren't children don't go to special school without an EHCP. And I'll explain, I think, the process to you, but that's kind of like an overview of the quality first of the SEND process. And then, you know, children come under different categories of need as well. So the EHCP process, when you decide to assess for a plan, it means that we've gone through all of the kind of first three phases, and you know it's not working, or that there hasn't been much of an improvement, and that's when we go for a decision to assess. Sometimes, depending on the level of need of the child, you just skip those and go straight to a request for an assessment. So you don't necessarily have to. That's what, you know, I've said, it really isn't a one size fits all. It's on a case by case basis. That's the general rule, but there are children who have really complex needs right from the start, or it's very, very evident, and we just go straight to request for an assessment. So the process, the EHCP process, is legally a 26-week process. It should be a 26-week process. I won't even tell you how long it's taken at the moment where I live. But that's what the Code of Practice says, that it should be 6 weeks, 26 weeks. Now, either the school or the parent can request request an assessment. It's better if schools request it. So right in the very beginning, when you're building that relationship with your SENCO and the school, I think it's important to kind of make them aware that you know that an EHCP application could be a possibility down the road, and that you want them to support you to do that. It's quite an involved process, and I suppose from experience, I get quite concerned when I see parents requesting, not because they shouldn't. It means that something hasn't worked between the child and the family and the school, and the parent is requesting and trying their best to kind of pull all the information together when the education part is really important. So building that relationship with your SENCO from the office is really important. But some of you, it's likely that you could have difficulties getting the school to agree to apply, and you just need to know that you can make that request yourself.
I thought, sorry, I was just going to say, I thought there was a move towards sort of stopping parents in initiating it, but and I can understand why, but sometimes the impact of the special education needs isn't so much in the academic attainment, and therefore sometimes schools are a bit reluctant if it doesn't impact on the work.
Yes, and that is an issue. But in my practice, I've always said, even though I didn't necessarily see the behaviors that, you know, parents were coming in or calling me and saying this is what's going on. I just knew that overall, I mean, we're talking about the whole child, you know, they're not a different child when they get to school. That's the same child. So at some point there'll be an impact. There'll be an impact, you know, or it's likely that there is some. I mean, I don't know a lot about other local authorities in the country. They're all, you know, they all have their challenges, and even the paperwork's not standardized. The only thing we have is the code of practice that everybody uses in the UK. But the parental requests have generally come as a last resort parents are making, because schools are not you know, and not supporting the application. It is an involved application. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of paperwork, and we all know the pressures that are on schools and on school staff, and it is a lot. But at the same time, it's important that it happens if it needs to. I don't know about stopping parental requests, but it can be done at the moment. I don't think it's, yeah.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so you need to gather evidence for the submission as well. So any reports that you have, any if the child's with CAMS or there's psychology reports, anything like that, you need to make sure that you gather those. Again, in your positions as foster and adoptive parents, you'll have your, I'm sure you will have your files and everything all, you know, neatly color coded, everything. So you'll have it all, because we need as much information as possible when it comes to the assessment time. Again, in that assessment, the child's voice will be, you know, they'll want to see that. So again, if you've got, sometimes children will talk to their parents and not to school, and you know, it's important to try and gather their views. So if you have your child's views written down, or they've made a PowerPoint presentation or something, you know, shove that in as well. Everything that you have, really, to kind of help with the assessment process. Okay, so
Bambi, sorry, can I ask, Heather's just asked, do you get the impression that schools are sometimes reluctant to request EHCPs until there is a formal diagnosis of something such as autism?
Some children, some schools will say that. Some will say that. Again, myself as a SENCO, I never needed a formal diagnosis before I put support in. Now, I may not have applied for an EHCP, but it's very evident that there are difficulties. So in the very least, there should be a SEND support plan. In the very least, there should be one. You don't need a diagnosis before you. It helps like later on for the EHCP, but for the SEN support, once a child is displaying difficulties that are impacting on home, school, they should really be on SEN support plan, and children go in and out of need as well. So it's not that if they go on an SEN support plan that they stay there. It might be that they just need a little bit of support for this amount of time, and then they come off again. So it's up and down. Did I answer?
Thank you. Yeah, that was great. Thank you. Tara had a question.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to take up too long because it's quite specific, but just briefly, my daughter's always had problems with school, and she's been refusing to go to school for most of the last year since her transition to secondary. And I've been going around in circles for a long time trying to get support for her, but I can't get her assessed because CAMS say they won't assess her because they don't have the evidence from school, and they won't accept evidence from any other setting. And obviously she's not been going to school, so they can't assess. And I just wanted to ask, really, is it worth my while keeping going round and round? Though I think I've lost. I can't see what else I can try now. Trying to get CAMS to change their mind and assess her, or really is it all just about trying to, and the school and the educational welfare officer keep saying without an assessment there's nothing they can do, really? Should I just be focusing on the school and trying to get a kind of a low-key plan in place? Or do you have any advice on that, where you actually can't collect the evidence from school to do the assessment? Is it worth carrying on fighting, or just accept we just have to work with what we've got?
So she's transitioned to secondary school this year?
Yeah, no, she just started year 8.
Oh, okay. So she's been at school in year 7?
Her attendance last year was 30%, but most of the time when she was there, she was sitting in pastoral, not in lessons. So and when she was in lessons, the teachers agreed, the plan was that she wouldn't be asked to do homework and she wouldn't be asked any direct questions. So they're really not in a position to assess her learning.
But my argument would be is that the school have evidence that she has struggled. She has a 30% attendance for year 7. She was in pastoral, being supported there because she couldn't be in class. I'm guessing she's highly anxious.
She's highly anxious, really very significant attachment problems. I mean, I think a real question mark ADHD. But CAMS won't see her
because school haven't written,
because school haven't got evidence of her learning needs.
But they've got evidence of her emotional needs. That's nonsense. I'm sorry.
She has had an assessment. She did get assessed for emotional support as well. And they said to me that I should just get private counselling or therapy, because that would be quicker and easier than waiting for it on CAMS. So she has been seeing a therapist for a while, and she's going back to him once the funding comes through. But on her learning needs specifically, they won't assess her.
Well,
and I don't know what to do anymore.
What the school will have, they will have her. Did she sit the SATs, the year 6 SATs?
No.
Didn't sit those. No. So the school will have evidence because the SATs results go up to the secondary school. So they will see that she didn't sit the SATs. She was no doubt placed in then the lower sets, so they've got that evidence. They've then got the evidence that she needed to be in the pastoral care for a significant amount of the 30% of the time that she was actually in school, and that she hasn't attended. That's all they need to say. School need to just write this on the CAMS referral and send it in. It isn't good enough to just say, well, she's not here, so we can't assess her. They have enough evidence, and you're going to need to go back to the school and say, these are the things you need to write down.
And it might, I don't know whether you've done this already, but it might well be useful to, if you're still getting no traction with the school, to actually write to the director of education and escalate it.
Yeah, I have escalated. I mean, it's gone as far as the MP and the Director of Children's Services.
Yeah, and you're still not getting anywhere.
But CAMS are still saying they won't even see her, so
they're still saying they won't see her.
Yeah.
Even with those things. The thing is, CAMS will try as well, because they are absolutely at breaking point.
Yeah.
They're it's difficult to get in because, and the criteria that they've put, I never have understood that. It is difficult, but you've written to director. Who have you written to? Director of Education, Director of
the Director of Children's Services.
Children's Services.
Yeah. So I don't want this to take
up
too much time for everyone else. But I agree with you. I think the problem is it feels to me like it's not just that like my daughter has been unfairly excluded from a kind of a functioning service. It feels to me like that it's a broken service, as I think it is in many areas, isn't it? It just feels like impossible that the support just isn't out there.
There is a Facebook group which is of parents of children who refuse to go to school. What I'll do is I'll look it up and I'll send it to everyone who's on the mailing list for this event, because you might find that they've got some more specific information and advice. I found that group really helpful.
Yeah. I would try again though with school, because have you got now attendance officers on your back? And that's a real problem, because it's not you or even your daughter's fault that she's not in school, and it isn't fair that you are being penalized in the way of attendance because your daughter has significant emotional difficulties.
Yes, the one bit of the system that still works is the bit that threatens to send me to prison.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing else seems to be working, but yeah. Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Okay, I hope that's helped. But yeah, I mean, like Yoni says, there'll be a Facebook group and there'll be 10 others. You're not alone in
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah,
thanks.
But just keep trying. So the EHCP process, if the local authority agree to undertake the assessment, then it's 20 weeks from that point. It should be 20 weeks from that point. I mean, there needs to be sort of educational psychology involved. I know where I am, educational psychology is really struggling. So the timescales are differing, but it should be in a perfect world 20 weeks. Until the plan is issued, and in that time there'll be discussions between yourselves, school, the local authority, about where the best provision would be, or what it is you would like to see. So whether your child stays in mainstream or a specialist placement is consulted for. I think you're all in different parts of the country. You'll know better than me kind of what the situation with special schools is. Where I am, they're awful. So it's really difficult at the moment. But the consultations still need to happen and go ahead. If the local authority, if you apply for an education healthcare plan assessment and the local authority say that they will not assess based on the evidence, you can appeal. And I know it's tiring, and I know it's hard, and it sometimes feels like you're fighting a system all of the time. But many of the times, I will say that if you go through an appeals process, it can be overturned. Because it's usually at that point, during the appeals process and mediation, that you actually get to speak to someone. It's a really bizarre way of doing things, but you actually get to go and talk to, somebody and explain. So you have the right to appeal the decision, any decision that's made. So don't think that if you get told no, we're not going to assess, that you can't then do anything else. you can definitely appeal. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
So it's kind of been a whistle-stop tour of special educational needs. I mean, yeah, I've got a master's degree in SEND and inclusion. I can talk to you all night if you want about my gripes about the system, but I'm in it, and you know, I have, and I think it's from my lived experience that I do want to remain in it and see how, you know, things can change, you know, and things can be made better for all children with additional needs. So if you want more support, and I think, Yoni, I can email this to you and you can email it out to everyone. I think you've got
that would be great. Thank you.
So yeah, I can email this to you, and then I've linked everything as well, so that you can, so it's easy, so you don't have to write anything down now or remember anything. Go to my website, sheisavip.com. She is a VIP is basically because, you know, visually impaired people are called VIPs, and that's where that story came from. My email address is there. My podcast that Yoni talked to you about, I did the first season, ended in like May this year. But if you check that out, there is actually a really good episode with Tim Maudlin on fostering. He's an American, but he on adoption. But he has 2 boys who he adopted in America, and he tells his story about how him and his wife have come through dealing with adoption trauma and with the boys. So it might be an interesting episode for you to go and have a look at. I can't remember off the top of my head what number episode it is. I might, when I email this out, I might just actually add it to the bottom so that you can go straight to the link. But if you go to the podcast, it's on Apple or wherever you get your podcast, you'll find it, Tim Maudlin there. And just one other thing I wanted to flag up to you. I'm actually a trustee for a charity called Growing Hope UK, and it's a Christian-based charity, but it's a charity that offers free occupational therapy to children with additional needs. So I sit on the board of trustees for our umbrella at King's Cross. I'm in the northeast of England, but it's based in King's Cross in London. And we have now 4 clinics, the 4th one just about to open. The plan is to open 20 clinics by 2030. So we're on the way to doing that. But like I say, the charity offers free occupational therapy to children with additional needs. Now, you don't need the children don't need a diagnosis to access the therapy. Just need a referral, and then they get seen by an occupational therapist. But what and they get like 6 sessions. So there's a clinic in King's Cross, a clinic in Brockley, London, southeast London, and there's a clinic in High Wycombe, and soon to be one opening in Gateshead in the northeast of England. But what we also offer is courses for parenting, for parents with children with additional needs. Again, not necessarily have a diagnosis, but you know that you'd like some support, and it's called When Dreams Change. I am actually one of the facilitators of that course. This course is free. And it's a 4-week course that just goes through actually how you, as a parent of a child with additional needs, you know, approaches the whole thing, really. And it's looking at how you care for yourself and take time for yourself, how you come to terms with the challenges that your child is facing and that you may be facing. So I facilitate the course online as well. So there's some in person, but I do it online. If you go to this link here, you can complete a referral form. I'm sure I'll probably be running a course soon, so you can get on that, and it's just 4 weeks, and there's activities and things. And then Growing Hope also offer siblings sessions as well, because we know that, you know, if there's a child in the family with special needs and there's a child who doesn't, those siblings, you know, need the support as well. So for the child with additional needs, for the parents and for siblings, there's some really good support through Growing Hope. Not just because I'm a trustee, and you know, it's just great. It's a great charity.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, but you can email me if you know you have any questions. But again, I'll email this to you, Yoni, and you can send it out.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. And I'll send out a recording, the links we've mentioned, and also the overheads. Thank you.
Yeah.
Marcus, did you have a problem?
Yeah, can I just ask a really quick question? So, as in terms of the EHCP, if it's approved, who decides about if the child goes to a special school or if they can stay at their current school?
You, as the parent, will make your desire known, basically. Okay. So if I was the caseworker for you, I would say, right, where is it you want? What is it you want for your child? You know, obviously depending on age, and then the child would be involved as well. But would you want them to remain in mainstream or attend a special? Now, you need to understand that you're making a request, and it's not necessarily the case that you would get a special school place. So a consultation would happen. And so what I do is, once I've written a draft of a plan, we know that it's almost at the end, I write the draft, and then I'll send it out to schools. I'll send it out to lots of different specials, you know, the nearest ones to the address to where the child lives. And the schools will return and say, yes, we have space. Yes, we can meet need. No, we don't have space. No, we can't meet need. You know, all of those things. And they have 15 days to do that. If they all come back and say no, you as the parent can still appeal for a place. So there's always, you know, it's not, if you're set on your child having a special school place, then that's what we go for. That's what we work for. But it's just remembering that it's not plain sailing. It isn't. So just bear that in mind. But it's you as the parents who choose.
Yeah, I was just thinking more from the point of view as if we wanted him to stay in the mainstream school, would they have a say in him being moved? Or is it down to us?
The mainstream school?
Yeah.
Well, the mainstream school would be consulted as well. So everybody would read the plan and say whether they could meet need or not. Now, the mainstream school might say no to begin with, but then it's a case of getting back around the table and saying, okay, what do you need in order to help, in order to meet need?
Okay.
So it might be more money, might be more funding. You know, they might say, well, we need an additional member of staff to meet all the needs that have been outlined and discussed. Well, then that means there's more money that's needed. So then you need to go back and look at the costings again. Your children should not be moved from mainstream if you do not want them moved.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Any other questions? I mean, from my point of view, and I with one of my other hats, I'm a social worker for looked after children, and I know, you know, even though I work with it every day, it is a complicated system. There's that's really helpful to sort of simplify it. I suppose I would also say if your child, you know, your post order, and then you can look at the adoption support fund as perhaps part of that plan in terms of getting perhaps some counselling or any kind of therapeutic involvement that might be helpful. So that's worth sort of remembering about. I think the general sort of feeling from the professionals is that perhaps there's a culture of applying for funding for therapeutic involvement at quite the later stages, and actually we don't have to wait, adopters don't have to wait until things are really difficult. They can put sort of more preventative support in place too, so it's worth thinking about that. Has it been useful? Is there something that you wanted to learn about? You know, that we can think about how to cover in another session.
I was going to say, I think we found it very useful. We're currently in this process, and the local authority have agreed to carry assessment. I just wondering what it is that the local authority are going to be able to offer to support. So there's definitely got 2 very traumatized children, attachment issues. We suspect ADHD, possible autism. Very difficult to make school successful for him. He really struggles. He tries to control everything. It can be very difficult. At times he's quite dangerous. So we've already got a lot of therapeutic input. We're having therapy. They're having sensory-based therapy. We've done lots and lots of courses on therapeutic parenting. We're implementing all of that, which is definitely having an effect. It's definitely helping. I just wondered what more the local authority might offer. At the moment, I'm just thinking all they're going to do is offer funding for one-to-one. At the moment, he has one-to-one at school, which is being funded by the virtual school, and there's no way he can stay at that school unless that continues, and that's approved for the next academic year. So is that something that would come from the local authority after this EHCP, possibly?
The funding to stay at the mainstream?
Yeah.
Yes. So it should be, did the school make the application?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it should be that it's costed. As for a one-to-one, there should be a costed provision map or costings in there to say that your child needs the one-to-one. And then it's just, you know, it's ensuring that actually happens when the money comes through. And if you're wanting them to stay mainstream, then they remain in mainstream, but with all of the added support and therapeutic support that is needed. What I would say is, once you get the EHCP, if you're deciding now that it's mainstream, but actually at the review stage, and it's not just an annual review, it can be reviewed at any point once you get it, you can change your mind. You can actually say, actually, maybe we need to try a different setting, a smaller setting, a more, you know, one that is more, you know, a therapeutic based setting. You're not kind of bound once you decide, okay, mainstream, and then you think, oh, it's not working. But it's really important to know as well that the plan doesn't have to just be reviewed once a year. You can request one pretty soon after it's issued. I mean, has the LA only just agreed to assess? You're just in the beginning. Or... Yeah.
The local authority just agreed to do an assessment, and they're just they want to start it middle of next month. Okay.
So it will be a little while before the plan is finalized.
Yeah.
But yeah, just know that you can review pretty quickly. We'll be getting into probably springtime before you get a plan. So it'll be interesting to see then, because what's gone in now, it's almost as if you write it, the ink's dry, and then it's changed, then the child's changed again. So you just have to see, by the time you actually get the final plan in your hand, you'll be thinking, oh, we gotta change this. This bit's gotta come out, we gotta add this now. So yeah, just know that, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I should even say, but you hold a lot of power if you've got one of them.
They are a legally binding document, aren't they? So whatever is in the CP has to be delivered essentially, which is why it's so hard to sort of get them. because they know, they know that they're going to have to meet that need.
And it's a plan that follows them. The process is a 0 to 25. I haven't got many kids at 25 who still have them, but if we're thinking about sort of secondary, post 16, college, that kind of thing, it's good that that support is there.
It's sort of been explained to us briefly as a bit of a passport. So whatever setting that child goes into, these needs have to be met, and they all know what it is, and they have to do it.
And I think I worked in leaving care team and with 16-year-olds upwards, and if they don't have an EHCP plan, then they won't get additional support post 18, which doesn't necessarily mean they don't need it. It's just that, like we were saying before, that perhaps academically or in school they've managed, but as their education progresses, they may need more support. So it is quite important, and also they're entitled to additional support and services as a consequence of being having that EHCP.
I was just going to say the adoption support fund you can still apply for it if you've got an EHCP until you're 25, and the cutoff is the end of your 22nd year if you haven't got an EHCP. So, and lots of children that I know, because a lot of my friends have got children around my age, the children are dropping back years because obviously GCSE is a massive stress, and what's happened with COVID has really impacted on that, and having that EHCP to go forward is really good. Although they try and get it off you as well at each point, which can
and I think one of the things that I wanted to say is that some of you have some of your children have the EHCP already, some of you are going through the process, but the thing you have in common obviously is that you have adopted or foster children. Now in schools are better, are getting better in the sense that there are people in school who are trained to understand those. So if they know that there are adoptive children coming in, but sometimes that can still be missed in a way. So it goes back to what I was saying before. I think sometimes you can feel like you're always fighting to get what your child needs, but maybe if you have the capacity, try and think about going to the SENCO and saying, oh, can I do something to help the teachers, or the teachers understand the difficulties that my child is facing. One of the things that I did as a SENCO when I was there was I had one of the parents I had a really good relationship with. She had a child with autism, really high functioning child, but just just struggled all the way through school. He got through school, but really struggled. He didn't have an EHCP, but what I asked her to do, because I kept standing up in front of teachers and saying, oh, Noah's having this difficulty, and this is why, and they would say, oh, but he's a pain and it's really difficult and things like that, and I just thought, you know what, I'm going to get his mum to speak to you, because I'm telling you what she's telling me. She's sitting in my office crying and saying, this is really hard. I'm just going to get her to tell you. So she was really willing, actually. She just did a short video for me. I asked some questions and I played that in a staff briefing, and it had such an impact, a real impact on the staff, because they got it from, she was on the video saying, I did everything I was supposed to do, through my pregnancy, breastfed, all the things. She said everything, and that was the thing that made the impact. Sometimes in school you don't have a huge amount of time. If you go to a parents' evening, especially in secondary, it's like speed dating, isn't it? You get 5 minutes and then you're on to the next one. Sometimes you don't have a huge amount of time, but maybe if you offered to give a talk or to help them understand from your perspective what's it like at home, that might bridge the gap. I'm not saying it will work. If you had come to me as a SENCO, I'd been like, fine, do all of my presentations for the next year. But you know, maybe try that as well, because I think if we can, if we're constantly going as we've got to fight for this, we've got to get this, it's really tiring. Try and make more allies than not.
And I think something that I'm increasingly becoming aware of is that there is a whole raft of adults who were never assessed as children, and even now, as you know, I've seen stuff online with 90-year-olds who have just had the diagnosis of ADHD or autism, and it's like all these things that they thought that they were doing that was wrong, or that was a personality defect or whatever, was actually as a consequence of the way their brain works and their accommodations for it. And so I think it is really, and I know we don't like to label children, but at the same time, the American research suggests that 40% of looked after children have ADHD on some level, and you know, and then there's a whole raft of children and young people who have other issues, and I think there's a real blurring between trauma and the impact of loss and ADHD and autism and the more formal diagnoses. Yeah, so it's important, I think, to.
But I wouldn't wait again.
No.
Waiting for a diagnosis before we put intervention in. There's a lot that can be done. There's deep therapeutic stuff that needs to be done by psychologists and people like that. But there's a lot that can be done by schools to help with these needs. They have this information. They have this information about supporting children with social, emotional, mental health needs, cognition and learning needs, communication, interaction needs. There are so many things that can be done. It's just a willingness to understand and to meet you halfway, because we've seen the processes are not straightforward. They're not, it's not a quick process. You blink and your child's another year old, you're older, and you still haven't got that piece of paper, but they still have these difficulties,
And I guess it's quite helpful maybe to look into what you think as a parent would be helpful to try and steer that conversation as you build up a relationship with people in the education system. And I always tell people not to feel like it's all being done unto you and you've got to wait and you've got to wait for other people to make those decisions, and sometimes you do have to be a little bit of a piece of grit getting people to listen to you. I think that's it. Bambi, thank you so much. That's been really interesting. Thank you.
That's been great to be here.
Just to let people know that I will send out, as I said, the recordings. I'd love to know sort of by email what you thought about it, any ideas you have of future sessions. I think more and more I'm honing sort of down into young people's needs around their race, their special needs, their disability, things that are going to be really helpful for adopters. And at the end of next month, I will be opening the doors for the adopters and carers membership, which is called Community Ohana, and that is a sort of safe space for parents, adopters, foster carers and special guardians to meet with other people to talk about some of these issues. Next month we're starting the didactic developmental psychotherapy course, the introduction to it. So we're doing things like that. So if you're interested, and we'll send you out details about it, but by all means get on the wait list, because what we do is we open the doors every so often, so people can get to know each other within the group. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I hope it's been useful. If Community Ohana members can stay on, that would be brilliant. Otherwise, I hope you'll come to future sessions. If you stay on the mailing list, we'll let you know when we're doing other sessions. So thank you.